Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I just finished Brigitte Gabriel's book, Because They Hate, and it makes a very strong case, a very compelling case, I would say, for radical Islam being really a majority within the Muslim community. And I think her personal experience in Lebanon and some of the things you see happening in Western Europe recently, I think back that up. I think the ultimate aim of the Muslim society is domination, and they may have been in retreat for a few centuries here over their lifespan of Islam, but I think their goals are the original goals of Muhammad, and that is to conquer by the sword, and people will submit or die, and it's ever expanding, and they want world domination.
Well, let me agree with an aspect of what you say and disagree with a part of it. I certainly agree that you are correctly describing the goals of radical Islam. Their goal is conquest, their goal is domination, and they will not hesitate to use extreme forms of violence to achieve it. I also agree with you that radical Islam is pretty strong, stronger than many people think in the Muslim world. The proof of this is that the radical Muslims have been able to win free elections. We saw this with the success of Hamas in the Palestinian territories. We saw it with the recent success of the Muslim Brotherhood in the parliamentary elections in Egypt. So the radical Muslims, by the way, who traditionally were against democracy, you know, bin Laden says we can't let the voice of the people substitute for the voice of God. But some of the shrewder organizations and larger organizations of radical Islam now support democracy. Not because they've been reading John Stuart Mill or the Federalist Papers, but because they've realized that if you have democracy, they can win. Now, on the other hand, I want to disagree with you in this way, that, Lebanon is one thing. The Middle East is even one thing. It's not typical of the Muslim world. I don't know if you know, there are almost as many Muslims in India alone as in the entire Middle East. The largest Muslim country in the world is Indonesia. I believe the second is Bangladesh. So you have the Middle East, but then you have another big group of Muslims that live in Asia. You have North Africa. And I think when you go outside the Middle East, you will find a very different kind of Muslim. You speak to Pakistani Muslims, they speak with a British accent, they are very secular, they drink scotch. They're not the type of Muslims that you will encounter in the literature of radical Islam. So let's remember that Islam has developed a quite cosmopolitan civilization historically. In fact, more cosmopolitan than Christendom if one goes back to the Middle Ages. And we should not write off a lot of Muslims who I think would be sympathetic to us if we were to reach out to them. It's only when we attack Islam as a whole that we in a sense play into bin Laden's hands. Bin Laden wants a clash of civilizations in which he can unify the Muslim world and declare that the whole Muslim world is on one side, fighting for Sharia, and the secular pagan West is on the other side, fighting, if you will, for the values of secularism and liberalism.
Asheville, North Carolina. Hi.
Hello. I would like to say I haven't read your book, but it sounds very interesting. And I'd like to revisit some of what you were saying about the correlation between secular left and radical Islam. It seems to me that very often people, they associate radical or fundamentalist thought as some particular aspect of religion rather than a cognitive process that any worldview can go through. I would support this by the number of different experiences that I've had speaking to people of to the left, trying to have a genuine debate about ideas and have it very quickly deteriorate into me being called like a homophobe or any other neocon or whatever. I mean, they might as well be calling me an infidel. It seems like that same sort of logic. And when fundamentalism gets identified as an aspect of religion rather than a cognitive process, the answer seems to be, well, let's promote secularism, because secularism doesn't identify itself as a religion, even though it serves a lot of the same capacities. So I guess what I'm saying is that you have radical fundamentalists in this country who don't readily recognize that they themselves are, promoting the same kind of thought process.
Well, I think that the thing to realize is that these terms, like fundamentalism, are Western terms. Fundamentalism is a unique movement that arose within a Protestant Christianity. And so there is a tremendous risk or sort of danger of ethnocentrism when you take a Western term and project it onto a non-Western culture where the term may be meaningless. For example, who is a fundamentalist in Christianity? Well, a fundamentalist is somebody who thinks the Bible is the literal, one may say unmetaphorical, Word of God that should be read exactly for what it says. Now, if you use that definition, every living Muslim is a fundamentalist, because every Muslim believes the Quran is the literal, unadulterated Word of God, not inspired, but dictated word for word in the Arabic language to the Prophet Muhammad. If you don't believe that, you're not a Muslim. So my point here is not that the Muslims are extreme or something, but it's that these terms like fundamentalism are not useful terms of classification within the Islamic world. So yes, it surprises me immensely. When we were fighting the Cold War, we understood it pretty well. The Cold War was a fight within Western civilization. Marx was a dead white male. Socialism and capitalism were competing philosophies for which delivers the economic goods better. But now we're dealing with a different kind of enemy that doesn't make its purposes all that clear, that requires a little bit of careful study and certainly a lot of debate. So it really surprises me when people who know no Muslims and very little about Islam so confidently declare Islam is this, the real thing that bin Laden is after is that, and so on. I think we should suspend judgment a little bit and be a little more open-minded and revisiting our own assumptions. This is really the essence of a good education, but the difference is now it has great practical significance. It's not just to get a PhD or land up with tenure. It is that ultimately ideas have consequences, and I think that one of the things I try to do in this book, The Enemy at Home, is show us a better way and a new way to fight the war on terror that can bring us a lot better results than we've been getting so far. I'd like to try to clarify where I think the real forceful thrust of bin Laden's argument is and where it's finding a sort of a receptive reaction in the Muslim world. Bin Laden is not saying that the corporations are coming to the Muslim world or that the American government is coming to the Muslim world to steal land. The reason for that is pretty obvious. The United States actually could steal the entire Muslim world by force, and we haven't done it. Even in Iraq, where Bush invaded, the left in this country said, oh, he's in there to reestablish colonialism, America wants to steal the oil, and so on. The truth of it is, America has invaded that country, but we don't own it. In fact, it's cost us money far more than any oil benefits we've gotten. America doesn't want to steal the oil over there. We just want to buy it. We just want to buy it. Now, here's bin Laden's point. His point is America has set up a devil's deal with secular rulers in that region, which is to say that apart from Iran, most of the rulers in the Middle East are all secular, right? Assad in Syria, Mubarak in Egypt, Abdullah in Jordan, the Gulf kingdoms, the royal family in Saudi Arabia, which is outwardly religious but in reality quite secular. Bin Laden's point is the West has a devil's bargain with these guys. Essentially, what the West gets out of it is oil. And what the secular rulers get out of it is support. The West is propping these guys up and keeping them in power. And what are they doing? Destroying Islam from within. The secular rulers are controlling the mosques, shutting down the schools, undermining Islam at America's behest. And why does America want to undermine Islam? Because it is true Islam that will bring the resistance against this sort of corrupt bargain that is being struck between America and the secular rulers. And you have to admit that there is a grain of truth to this in this sense, that when the Saudi royal family comes to visit America, and if you say to these guys, hey, listen, you're very corrupt, you've been stealing $1 billion here, here, $1 billion there, their general answer is, well, yeah, so it's either us or the bin Laden guys. You want to get us out of there, you're going to get Al-Qaeda in there. And then the American response is, well, we're very sorry we brought this up. See you next year. Go back to doing what you were doing before. So yes, we are caught in the Middle East in supporting the bad guys to get rid or avoid the worst guys. Sometimes in politics you have to do this. But in my view, the importance of Iraq is that for the first time America is trying to put a new card on the table. As an alternative to Islamic tyranny of the kind we see in Iran, or secular tyranny of the kind we see everywhere else in the region, we are for the first time trying to create a Muslim democracy. Now people say, you know, and Bush even says, I want democracy all over the world and so on. We're not the world's policemen. Foreign policy is not philanthropy. But I do think that in Iraq we're trying to create not democracy everywhere, but democracy somewhere. And if we succeed, we might be creating a new model that the Muslim world can gravitate toward.
San Francisco.